hsdenver.com, where we talk about everything health and wellness, which is very broad, but it's really important to understand, having a full spectrum of health and also bringing truth to health. We have so much misinformation and confusion and misunderstanding and all of these things around health and wellness, and my goal is to do my best to bring you the most amazing people, good people who are out there to serve others, who are willing to go out of their way to make sure that what they're doing is the best and is creating and giving a good life who everybody is, who surrounds them, and out and beyond, especially when it comes to the broad reach that we have with doing shows like these. So health and wellness is relational, financial, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's all of the things, and that's what we try to talk about here. And I truly do feel amazingly blessed to be surrounded by people who are working their asses off to bring goodness and light and information and love and joy to other people. So today we have Sharon Sayler, who has an amazing story. What I love about also the people who I bring on, all of them to date, unintentionally, but all of them to date are entrepreneurs. And most of them have a story that changed their trajectory in life. Again, not intentional, but I think that is such a big part of people's story and what they have to share and what they can give in life, and what we all want to take and learn from when things are difficult. What can we do to turn them into something big and beautiful and better? And so that's Sharon. So thank you, Sharon, so much. I know sometimes my intros are really long, but I'm super grateful that you're here. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Nikki, and I'm so honored and grateful to be here myself. It's so exciting to see you.
I know. It's fun doing the live radio, the live stream, because everything is live instead of, just the podcast where it's just, the audio, and which both are amazing because they're both great at different times. But it is fun that everybody can see us chatting and having a good conversation and see who you are, because you have, like I said, an amazing story and so much to share. And before we get into that, though, ouch, I cut myself cooking. So
oh, no.
I know. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Anyway, so before we get started, as always, we start the show with gratitude, because I believe that gratitude can change the world, and it can change our mindset, and it can change our energy, and it can change so much about us. So, Sharon, what are you grateful for today?
Wow, that's a broad question, Nikki.
I know, it can be hard, huh? There's so much.
Well, you mentioned emotional, spiritual, work, career, family, all of those things as who we are, and I could label grateful in so many of those areas. Right now, right off the top of my head, looking out the window, grateful that it's raining today.
Oh.
For the first time in months. So
nice.
Some people are like, what are you talking about? I've got the windows wide open. I just love, all the dust being cleared and all that. Anyway, so I'm really grateful for the rain.
Yes.
Thank you, rain. And so I'm grateful to be here and see your lovely face again. So that's exciting. So plenty to be grateful for. I'm grateful for my health, that I had a bout of long COVID and I got the right help, and being able to come out, see the other side, being able to come out that tunnel. I think we're really close now, so I'm grateful for that.
Oh, that's so hard. Awesome. Sorry, I grabbed that cut and I just made it bleed. How's that for embarrassing, bleeding on live streaming? Anyway, whatever. That's the way it goes, right? It's always something. So I'm going to try to keep my little gratitude story short. I love music, as I think most people do, but I get really excited. We go to concerts as often as we can. And so last night, so a little background story. So we went and saw, I don't know if you know him, a lot of you will, but Tyler Childers. Do you know who Tyler Childers is?
No, I don't.
He's kind of country, a little bit rock, kind of bluesy, very singer-songwriter, just really good. And he's and twangy, very twangy. I just love his voice and raspy. It's amazing. So, we had tickets to go see him almost a year ago. And I ended up having to not go because I went up to be with my mom as she was passing. So, oh, shoot, I didn't turn my phone off. Sorry, I hope that doesn't happen again. I can't get to it. Anyway, so wasn't able to see it. Of course, you know, I am grateful to have been able to be there with my mom while she passed. But since then, my friend who came up here for the first show found tickets that was a really small venue, probably 300 people with him. And then my husband bought us tickets at Red Rocks. It was obviously a huge venue last night to see him. And it was amazing and it was so good. And I so enjoy people who have the voice that they have in real life that they have on tape, right, recorded, without all of the extras and the stuff. But what happened too is we were getting ready to leave. And my husband looks at my dog, my bigger dog, and she had a slash, like literally a slash down her arm. And we're like, what are we going to do? We got to go to the concert. There were not cheap tickets. So I'm grateful for being able to go to the concert. I'm grateful that we were able to get her into the vet and they could just take her in and sew her up. And as soon as we got out of the concert, we were able to go pick her up. You know, the timing's really beautiful, and I mean, for what it is. And, you know, she's pretty sad right now with how she's not feeling very well, but
poor thing.
I know, but grateful that that's all it was. You know, it was a pretty good tear. I don't know what she did it on, but you know, it could have been in a much worse place. You know, it was a place, you know, a lot of tissue, a lot of muscle there, so not a lot of damage, just kind of yucky. Anyway, but lots to be grateful for my health, the dog's health, seeing Tyler Childers, and amazing music. I love music, so that's where I am today. And not much sleep last night, unfortunately, but all good. So let's get into the good stuff, and let's talk about you, Sharon, and let's talk about, you know, the who's and the whys, and, you know, what motivates you and what excites you and what gets you going and what got you here.
Oh my goodness, that's a broad question.
I know, lots of broad questions.
I think what brought me here and my passion for you are not your diagnosis. If you had asked me 8 years ago when I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, a very rare one, it was really hard to find any gift in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But here we are, zoom forward almost 8 years, and so many gifts. My life has changed radically in this period of time, and you know, in a way, I'm sort of hoping that COVID will do that too. I did, as I mentioned, catch COVID. I caught it early, before it was even labeled COVID. In hindsight,
wow.
In hindsight, yeah, I was an early adopter.
Lucky you.
But in a way, I'm very thankful that I was, because luckily it was treated and I came out the other side fine. But in hindsight, I'm like, I don't know, you know. I'm just glad systems weren't overwhelmed at the time when I was recovering, things like all sorts of things. I'm grateful for it with that. But what brought me here is all of my training in communications, in dealing with conflict, dealing with people who have a difficult time. You know, all of that, all my communications brought me to this moment and understanding how, when we are told what our diagnosis is, how a large number of people can internalize that, and it becomes part of their identity.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when they talk about themselves, wellness is kind of off in a corner somewhere, maybe even shoved in a dark closet. They're just, when they say, I have, if you're not careful, that can imply ownership. Mm-hmm. You know, I like to tell this story, it's kind of gross, but about this idea of You know, it's a metaphor, okay? I'm like, if an exterminator says, oh, you know, you have cockroaches or you have ants or something like that, you're like, oh, okay, and there's no ownership. It's like, yeah, fine, get rid of them, you know, take them, they're yours. But when someone in what I like to say, sort of this mentality that we get around medicine and medical situations, is an authority that someone is telling us, an authority is telling us, the white coat authority is telling us you have, you know, and then all of a sudden you're like, ah, and it feels like that's now part of you. But and so when I first got my diagnosis, I did sort of trudge through that, like, oh my gosh, and I realized it was becoming part of my identity, and so I had to change up how I talk about it, and it led me on a whole new career, well, tandem career trajectory, because I'm still doing the old work that I used to do, the other work I used to do about conflict and communication. But it also led me into this world about talking about communication and how we talk about ourselves and how we talk about our medical and our wellness and our well-being really creates our reality as well. Yeah. So that's sort of my view of all of this. And being able to talk about it in such a way that you can relate to doctors what's going on with you and make sure that everybody's really clearly on board with this is about wellness. This is not about symptom management or anything else. This is about how can we together optimize.
Yeah, it's interesting when, whether it's with clients or with people I talk to, the things that I pick up on, I think maybe partly from you and from others who understand that the illness is not the person, right? And let's take that away and move in a different direction. But when I hear people say, my autoimmune disease or my cancer or my whatever it is, I always just think that that's not who you are. I mean, in my mind, and I you know, I can't always just say that, even if I want to. But I want to, that would be, and maybe I should say it more. Let's separate the two, because this one is what you want to go away, and you want to, like you just said, bring in the wellness and create the wellness and help the wellness and get rid of the other. So, yeah, it's interesting. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about, because I think it's interesting, I think it's part of your story, the condition that you had? Are you considered to be in remission?
I am considered to be in remission. I loved it. About 5 years in, the rheumatologist says, congratulations, we're putting you in the remission folder. And I was like, oh, I could have told you that 2 years ago, but okay.
Right.
Anyway, I think, yes, I was doing I want to go backwards a little bit before the diagnosis. I was doing about 200 years, feels like that. 200 days a year, how's that? 200 days a year on the road, speaking about it for corporations and other business folk, you know, entrepreneurs and things, about communications and dealing with difficult people, customer service, and helping people through crises, those sorts of things. And it was interesting to me that in hindsight, I thought I was eating healthy, grabbing a salad on the go, must be healthy, right? You know, didn't take into account any of the other areas of health, like sleep and stress and all of those things. And one day I'd flown in, that was a delayed flight, so extra stress, and I'd flown across country, landed in Florida, got into bed about midnight, and was exhausted. Woke up early in the morning to get ready to do an all-day training, and I couldn't move my legs. Oh. Gone to bed tired and stressed, but that wasn't abnormal for me at the time. So, and you know, you just freeze. It's like, okay, how come this is not good? What's going on? And
how
I was
scary. I'm sorry,
I
just can't even imagine waking up like, I mean, holy smokes, I didn't know that. That's, wow.
Yeah. Well, I should put a little asterisk by that. I couldn't move them off the bed. I could feel my legs. I could like move my pose, but the muscles were not engaging, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
so I knew that the legs were still there, thank heavens, but finally was able to figure out a way, sort of with abs and etc., to roll myself out of bed and able to stand up, but knew that that wasn't going to work or last. And the way sometimes we think, okay, we're just going to muscle through this. I actually, after about an hour or so, I was feeling better. I actually went and did the training. Now, I know, I know. Don't tell me how stupid that was in hindsight. I'm thinking, what are you doing? And we were over the weekend, went on a vacation with some friends that I had down there, and on that trip I started to break out in hives from head to toe. And so not only now I have sort of some muscle weakness going on. It wasn't as bad as the morning I woke up, and I'm like, oh well, just keep muscling through this. I don't know, sometimes I find women a little bit more than men, and maybe I find entrepreneurs more than others. Sometimes do this thing about, oh well, we'll just muscle through and hide it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't recommend that, guys,
No.
but that's the mindset I find. And by the end of the weekend, I'm covered in hives from head to toe, and I have no idea why. We go to urgent care. The friends take me to urgent care. They don't know what it is, but they assure me it's not contagious, so put me on a flight back to my home state. And I go to my doctor. I actually went to my allergy doctor. She was the one who could see me, and I thought the hives were probably allergy. And I knew it wasn't good when she came into the room, took one look at me, her face went white and blank, she stared at the ground, and she left the room. She's, oh, I forgot something. And
what?
No, a lot of my expertise is in body language, so I just knew, well, that's not good. She comes back with another doctor whom I've never met, and of all things, they look at my fingernails. And I still don't know what's going on. And she comes back in and she says, she's looking at the ground, she won't make eye contact, and she says, you have dermatomyositis. Now, it meant something to her, obviously, because the way she said it, all of that, I knew, okay, this is not good. But it could have been supercalifragilistic. I mean, it meant no sense to me whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, who's heard of dermatomyositis? I know now that I'm out there doing the Autoimmune Hour podcast, I get a lot of people saying, I know of dermatomyositis, but at the time, totally foreign. Anyway, so that started the journey, and in recovery. And I did go through that phase of, oh no, my life is radically changed. Is this going to be who I am, and why all of this, why me kind of stuff. But I realized that was just as the person who told me you have dermatomyositis rubbed off on me going, oh no, that's not good, and listening to all the stats and all of this sorts of things, I had internalized that. And I early on, after going through a series of other doctors, realized, if I keep in this mindset of, oh no, that's not good, and internalizing that I am this label, I am really limiting my ability to get well. If I can't see myself as a well person again, yes, in all honesty, my life is not the same as it was. There's more about managing my wellness. I'm actually probably healthier now because I do a lot more management of my wellness and well-being. But if I had stayed in that place I was right after diagnosis, I don't think we'd be having the same conversation, for sure.
Right. Yeah, and so you talk about mindset, and I'm sure that was a huge piece of your healing, as well as now, when you are working with others and, helping them through their diagnosis, whether it's through your awesome podcast, the Autoimmune Hour. Look it up and check it out, and go to the Autoimmune. Your website is the Autoimmune. It's not the Autoimmune Hour. It's what is it?
Understandingautoimmune.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have written that down. And I was like, I'll remember that.
Seems simple.
Goodness. But check it out. Check out her podcast. It's so good. But as you know, you have your message, how do you, excuse me, how do you help people, and what is your message, and how did you change your mindset to that I need to see myself as healthy and not as ill?
Well, I know when I talk about it, trust me that it doesn't happen like with fairy dust.
Right.
You know, sometimes when
Takes
you tell
work.
your own story, it sounds like,
Mhm.
oh, you just sprinkle a little fairy dust and poof.
Oh, better.
I've had hills and valleys on this journey, okay? And I
Mhm.
trust that you guys be okay with your hills and valleys on your
Yeah.
journey as well
Yeah.
as to wellness as well. I think the big thing for me was not allowing myself to see myself as I'm going to put, you know, diseased or disabled or any of those types of things. I did not want that.
Mhm.
Part of me was in this, I don't know what I want, but I don't want that mode, which is helpful as long as you don't stay stuck there. You make the choice for wellness. Make the choice. Some people say, I want my old life back. And I often go,
Do you
are
really?
you sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what your old life got you here?
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes a radical revision of how you view your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be tough because you're getting a lot of people who want, sometimes, I know it sounds strange, but sometimes you get people in your life who want you to stay the same.
Oh,
You know, you're making
yeah.
radical changes in
Mhm.
wellness and optimization of your life, stress reductions, changing your sleep habits, changing your eating habits, changing everything. And a lot of times there are certain people in your life that you might find, go back to the way you were. And no, because that's what got you here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really great point. You know, some people, including ourselves, sometimes have a difficult time moving forward and a difficult time with change. And I think that those can be blocks. They can be, you know, traumas. You know, I don't know. I think there are a number of things that can keep people stuck and be, you know, unable to change. You know, when I talk with my potential clients, it's I have to know that they are not stuck, or they're really, really, really willing to get unstuck, because because you know, the work to go to work on your health and bring yourself back to health, but also know that it takes the mindset and it takes support and it takes all of these outside factors to kind of help you move forward. And sometimes you have to get rid of, or at least sort of put to the side for a bit, those, if they're people or if they're things or whatever it is that's keeping you from moving forward. You know, talking about those people who want your old life back, or want you back the way that you used to be. You know, a little bit of distance sometimes can be smart for a period of time to get you to where you need to be. Yeah?
And I just want to point out that not all of those people are malicious, okay?
No, agreed.
Take a beautiful relative of mine at holidays has a fantastic dessert that they make every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot of allergens for me.
Yep.
Not for the rest of the family, but for me. And this is a constant thing. She's an elderly person and I love her to death. But, oh, Sharon, just one little bite.
Yeah.
How can it hurt?
Yeah.
Now, that's not malicious.
No.
That's family memories, that's all of this sort of thing. And it's hard for them to understand how one little bite could set me back in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
That now I know how to treat and I know how to stop the progression of it, so that's good. But why do I want to go through 48 hours, 72 hours of an allergy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Without one little bite. So sometimes it's not always malicious. It's just a lack of understanding. Unless you've had a chronic long-term condition that changes your life, it really is hard to understand what it's like to live your life completely to the fullest as possible, and still there's a part of you that's sort of going, am I safe? On a heightened extent. I know we've had the marvelous guest Sarah Payton on the show a few times, and she's wonderful, and she talks about this idea that as people, regardless of your medical status, we ask two questions: am I safe, and do I matter?
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of an ongoing radar in our head. It just is a continuing loop. And once I understood that, especially am I safe, I realized why a lot of times, even as we begin to progress in our wellness, we can slip back a little bit. And for me, it's always been around this feeling of safety. So we could go so many ways with this, but I just wanted to bring that out, that oftentimes it's not from a lack of willpower, it's not from malicious people, it's just life.
Yeah.
And so to me, boundaries are critical. Understanding, setting boundaries for myself, setting boundaries with other people. So that's another topic, but I think boundaries were critical in, I had always had sort of loosey-goosey boundaries until my illness and my journey into wellness. And not so much anymore. And sometimes that can also shock people, like, whoa, didn't see that coming. She had loosey-goosey boundaries. What's this?
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, there's so many directions that we could go with it, but going, backwards just a little bit and talking about understanding that when you have been diagnosed with something that is chronic, as you're trying to move out of it, and I've seen this in my clients, that they're moving in a positive direction. Things are going really well, especially my autoimmune clients, because with autoimmunity you can have flares, as many of you know and have experienced, and it can take that one little bite, just as you were saying. And I say this because I want to reiterate, because I think it's so important for people to understand, because I have to explain it to my clients pretty regularly. Your body knows. The body knows if it's one little crumb. I'll ask people, how often are you eating gluten? Oh, not very often, maybe twice a week. Like, that is so much. And some people can get away with it, but a lot of people can't. And if you have an autoimmune condition, you can't. It's just kind of a hands down, you can't, or you shouldn't, because it's good to do all kinds of things that it's doing. But it's not it's not my story, but it's a story with a physician who was putting on a seminar. But he, just like you had said, he had a woman who was really, really sick, and she was doing really well. It took him months and months and months for her to get to this place where she was doing well. And so she was at a party, right? And at a party is like a birthday party. It's not a problem. I feel great. I'm just gonna have a bite of cake, and it set her back months. And so it can stink to be in that position, but understanding that, creating the boundaries, understanding your body, learning that what's going to set you off, what's going to flare you, and what's not. And one of my favorite things with clients who are not that critical, but it's an understanding of their body, because that's what I want, is for people to learn their body and understand what they need and what's going to be best for them, is when they do eat something that they shouldn't and they feel it. But it's not a bad feel. It's not like it took them back for months. When it's somebody who's really or chronic, I very much want to express to them, this is something that you should not do, because it will set you back for a long time. But somebody who just, they just feel bad, or they have a tummy ache, or they feel bloated, they're like, I just didn't feel good. Great, now you know.
Exactly. And now I want to say it can be as simple as when I was going through that process of discovery of which foods, and some of them didn't show up in the nutrition allergen testings and the response testings.
Right.
But my nose would start to run after eating them. And I'm like, okay, well, that's obviously an irritant. I might not be a full-blown allergy, but let's minimize that, if not extinguish that, because why is my nose starting to run right after I ate it? Obviously something about my system. And the interesting thing about foods is I did go through the different allergen and response testing for nutrition, and a really weird one came up: parsley. And that came up in the red flags section, just waving loud, and parsley.
Of all things.
And So I went out to dinner and I realized, oh gosh, there's not a lot in this limited menu I could eat. This was several years ago. And so I ordered a baked potato, or I'm sorry, a sweet potato. And that was the only thing on the menu. I thought, okay, I can have this sweet potato. And I thought I was very clear, and I said, please, no butter, nothing, just the plain potato. And it comes, and it has nothing, but it's been cracked open, and it has a little bit of parsley sprinkled on top. And of course, wanting to be nice, I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to scrape it off, right? And I'll be fine. And I ate it, and in the middle of the night, I woke up with a migraine, or not technically a migraine, but a migraine feeling, of pounding head and soreness. And I called the doctor the next day. Oh my goodness, I think I've been parsleyed. I said, how can that be? It must have been only a molecule of parsley. I scraped it off. And she explained to me, Sharon, when I met you, your inflammation from food allergies and sensitivities was off the charts. It was way up there, let's say at 100. And she said, we've gotten you down, and you've been so good, and you've been finding all these things out and eating the way you should eat, your body wants. So we've got your inflammation way down. And so you get one little thing, and you zoom right to 100 again. Where before at 95 to 100, not that much, right? Didn't matter if you'd been parsley, you were in pain anyway, so what's the difference? Now that we have your body settled down and the inflammation under control, it was so shocking to me that something first, it seems so innocent as parsley. Now I'm not bashing parsley, guys. For me,
everybody's different,
I know lots of people that can eat parsley, so I'm not bashing parsley, but everybody's different. And you're thinking something as simple as that could set me back. Luckily, it was just about 72 hours it was out of my system, but wow, what an eye-opener.
It is, it's so interesting. And I think people, initially, well, two things about that is what you said, which is sort of hitting the nail on the head, is when you have little things that you don't understand, so a runny nose, a random ache, a random headache, it's not just that because you have a headache, it's not just because you have a runny nose. Your body's trying to talk to you, and your body's trying to tell you something, and your body's trying to get your help and warn you about something. And it's interesting that we look at it as it's just a random occurrence and there's nothing that triggered it, but something certainly did trigger it. And so taking a step back and thinking, what could it have been? And that's the best part about learning and understanding and knowing your body, is when you figure out those little things and how to avoid them and how much better you feel. And back to what you said regarding, when you feel so good and you eat something that you shouldn't, it's that much worse, right? And I hear
it's an eye-opener. It's like a slap.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hear it from my clients all the time. They're like, I didn't know I could feel this good, and then I didn't know I could feel this bad so quickly. Like, good, now you know. It's great.
Yes, if it comes with parsley now, I just send it back. I said, please, naked, totally naked.
So curious, is there anything now that you took out before that you have tried to bring back in that you're more comfortable with than before?
Absolutely, but I've added it back slowly and sparingly. So eggs were taken out for a while, but that didn't really show up as egregious on the different charts, the different testings we did. It was sort of in the high, or in the yellow area. So I like to say green, yellow, red.
That's how they all show up.
Yeah. So we'll just say it's like in the caution, the bleeping caution light, And I've added that back. I can have about one a week, which is nice too, because honestly, it did get down to the ridiculous of a half a dozen foods or so at the beginning, and slowly adding each week or each couple of weeks, depending on where it is and what it is, has really expanded what I can eat, which is wonderful, because going out to restaurants is tough. For the pandemic kind of threw that into a loop, but I think many of us are venturing out again.
Yep.
Or even going to a friend's house to eat can be tough.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, slowly adding them back and just making sure that I'm really careful about taking notes. Okay, just because I ate that, well, poor egg, but I'll bash on the egg for a second. Just because I ate that egg and nothing happened, like I didn't get a runny nose immediately, I keep some notes to myself because I don't know about you, but I think I'll remember and I don't.
Yep.
So I keep notes about, because it can be, I don't know, 24, 48, sometimes 72 hours when all of a sudden I'm like, okay. And then I have to always guess and test a lot too. Like, okay, that's 72 hours later I have a really bad headache. Was that egg that I tested, or something else I was exposed to, or, stress, or it's like a game of memory, where you're flipping over the cards trying to make a match.
Yeah. It is, it's really difficult, and that's why, I love elimination diets, but it's really difficult when the data shows that a sensitivity can present 2 to 9 days after eating a food.
Who remembers what they had 9 days ago?
No, I know. For me personally, it was simple for me because it was such a small thing, but when I eliminated gluten, I'm 40, 45 years old and these crazy pimples on my face. What is wrong with me? And it just progressively got worse and worse over the years, from when I was younger to when I was older, to, the cystic, horrible stuff. It would be around for months and months. So I finally thought, all right, I'm a nutritionist, I'm going to give up gluten. Let's see what happens. And my face cleared up. And I knew that sensitivities can present 2 to 9 days after eating whatever it is. And so that was the only thing that I brought back in one day. I went and had beers with friends, and I had pasta, and the whole thing. 8 days later, my face breaks out. So it's interesting and it's difficult. That's why food sensitivity testing can be so good. But I think also understanding that a lot of times it's not necessarily the food as much as it's your pissed off immune system.
Oh,
right,
yes.
Yeah.
It's just that the food was poking the immune system, and the immune system roared back.
Yes, exactly.
But I just why start poking the snake with a stick?
No, I totally agree. When especially when it's red, because that's how it comes back on food sensitivity testing. Like you said, it's green, yellow, or red. But when it's red, you want to take as much of those out as you can. I have a client who came back, the entire sheet was red. And she was yeah, it was intense. And so she was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to eat? She was already just high in stress. Her whole body was in the red, right? She had so much going on. And I told her, so yeah, the food, there's a problem here, but it's not the food, it's your immune system. So we need to take a step back, create balance in the immune system, eliminate what we can for a time, but this isn't, for the most part, it's not forever, because we're going to be able to balance your immune system, and it's not going to be so angry and turn everything red. And we did.
And when your immune system's that angry or upset at you, it's to me, it was never just about the food. Honestly, the food was a huge component, because that's adding fuel to the fire. Mm-hmm. But stress reduction.
Yes.
This term's kind of weird. I've heard it. I'm not sure I agree with it. Sleep hygiene. Right. I like to call it sleep rituals. Yeah. I prefer sleep rituals, but some of you might know it as sleep hygiene. So many things, exercises that you can do. At first, with the dermato means skin, myositis means muscle. So the muscle weakness part of it, I couldn't exercise like I had or wanted to, but just doing something. Mm-hmm. And I like to encourage people to do just something in all the areas, spiritual, emotional, physical, mental, all of the areas that you can. And maybe it's just one little thing a day. Mm-hmm. But, it's exponential. But at the end of a year, you've made 365 changes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's exponential, yeah. And it's not, like I said, it's not, I wish it was fairy dust, but it's not. It's about putting in the time with nutritionists such as yourself to understand what's the fuel that's adding to this fire that's already here, and then what else is making the conditions for it to rage. You know? So, but sometimes it's like, I think about the food as the fire, but then in this wildfire sort of analogy, the stress that I've been putting on my body and all these other things that I haven't been taking care of that I'll get to tomorrow because I've got other more important things, are all of the dried brush that catches on fire. And I think people need to understand that you have to have this comprehensive approach to your wellness. You can't just fix one thing and assume that you might feel somewhat better. And I know oftentimes we can play this game, this is good enough. But I really encourage people to say, is it really?
Yeah. And good for you. You know, that I have a couple of driving factors in, you know, in life and in work. You know, I've experienced my own sort of issues with you know, conditions, you know, that are just really kind of debilitating. And what I know is once you get beyond that point, that you feel good, and when you feel good, you have the ability to live and to do all of the most amazing things that you're put here to do. You know, we're all here for a reason. We're here to serve and to give and to love and to create and to build, and you know, we have gifts, and if we don't feel good, it's hard to give those gifts. And so being stuck in the cycle of, like you said, you know, this is good enough, and or I'm not good enough, or I can't do it, and you know, finding a way, whether it's guidance from someone or whatever it is, to flip, to help you with that mindset. I've had to work on my own mindset with things, right? And so help you to flip that mindset and then start taking those baby steps to forward movement to health, and not settling for this is good enough, because we have such a short time here with big things that we can do to make such a big difference. And that's what gets me going, is when I'm working with people who are seriously motivated, and watching them just sort of, I don't know, open up and feel better, and they're just excited, and they're like, I can now do what it is that I'm put here to do. You know, it's a blessing. It is. It really is a blessing.
In hindsight, looking back, we wouldn't have gotten that out of me at the moment of the diagnosis. But absolutely, in hindsight, being able to make meaning has been critically important. And I can see all of the trainings I had up until that time, all of the things that I learned about communication and things, really propelled me through. And I'm continuing to do the corporate work, as well as now talking to people about how we talk to ourselves and others about wellness and well-being is part of this. It's not just understanding specific tests and what we put in, food we put into our mouth. It's also what food we're putting into our brain. Like what stories are we telling ourselves, and how do we tell those stories to others? So it's critically important in our wellness and our well-being, and part of that, as you opened the show so beautifully, is about gratitude. And when I first was going through the intense healing phase, dermatomyositis causes your skin to peel. So imagine waking up like with a 3rd-degree sunburn and you haven't been out in the sun. So that's what happens. There were days when just opening my eyes that morning, I would be grateful, and I would have my gratitude ritual, and just being able to open my eyes and be breathed that morning. So each time you take that tiny little step and be grateful for that step and that moment of awakening, and what is here for me to learn, what is here for me that I can share with others, that perhaps they need that moment to have like, oh, I didn't know that. There's so many times people have told me things, and even here, and listening to our conversation, I was like, I did not know that. It's been awesome to be able to continue to add, and so making meaning is critically important to understand that there's more to what's happening to you in this moment than just this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that just crossed my mind, and I have not thought this thought through very much, so I'm going to say it anyway. But, you know, we're told to live in the present, you know, not live in the past, and, you know, not live in the future, and all of these things. But I think that as important as that is, when you're going through a situation that is as chronic as what you were dealing with, and making sure, though, that you have that hope and that movement forward to know that it's not going to stay in that situation, and finding your team. And I say this a lot, and I say it to my clients, and I say it all the time, and I hope that I probably will, there are a few things that I'll probably never stop saying. I want to say it constantly, because I think it's so imperative to make sure that when you're stuck and when you're in a place where you don't know how to get out, find your team, find the people who are there, who you know are going to be on your side, who hopefully will communicate with each other and help you dig your way out and find your health, because we can't do things alone. I mean, we can do some things alone, and it's great, but having your partners and your team and your people to help you, I think it's really imperative when you're feel like you're being crushed, right? Because that's what it can feel like.
Oh, absolutely. About 3 years ago now, I found my team, and they're awesome. And I love all of them. And that radically changed the trajectory, the speed of the healing, is having the right team, understand my specifics. Because even with the label of a diagnosis, everyone presents differently. You can read someone about chronic fatigue, and you could talk about to 6 different people, and they've had 6 different unique experiences. Or any diagnosis, MS, it's the same thing. You talk to 6 different people, and they've had 6 completely unique experiences. So finding a team that gets you and wants to help you. And I know you said you do some things alone. You might do specific things alone, like whether you put that gluten into your mouth or not.
Yep.
Is alone. But you know, honestly, it takes the whole team to get, what is that? Takes a village to get well. Because sometimes just knowing that, this sounds awful, but I'll tattle. Just knowing that if I did put that cake in my mouth, I'm going to have to admit that to one member or more of my team.
Accountability.
Keeps me from doing it. So sometimes, sometimes it's even minor, that it's more than just you going through this experience. And I want to point out, it's okay to leave a medical situation, and I'm going to put it in air quotes, but it's okay to fire a medical professional. It's okay to fire a coach. It's okay to fire people in your life.
If it's not working
it's not about hating them. I mean, I've had plenty. What propelled me to start the show really was about 3 months in. I had one of the top doctors in the field. I had been blessed. I'm thinking, oh wow, how did I get, this opportunity to be seen by one of the top doctors? Yet I realized that they weren't really listening to my uniqueness of my situation. And I kept having these weird reactions to some of the medication. And I'm like, okay, now we're just trading symptom for symptom. And the doctor kept saying, well, that's a side effect. And he said, but at this point, it's a symptom. It's impairing my life. Let me choose. And so you could just see kind of hear where I'm going with this. It wasn't going to end well. And so I said, I think it was mutual. When I brought it up, I said, I'm going to seek other care. I think they were as relieved as I was, because I wasn't, we weren't on the same team.
Right.
We didn't understand. They were trying to cure the symptoms, and I was trying to cure the whole thing. I was trying to create a whole new wellness being, a whole new body for myself. And so being comfortable having those tough conversations when it's not working, and it's okay. And sometimes, most of the time, they're just as relieved as you are that you're going to seek other situations, other opportunities for finding the right care providers, the people that can educate you in the way you need to be educated. And it's so, like, it's okay to say, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like a bad breakup of a bad date, but move on, find next.
Yeah. Well, you have to, and it's about advocating for yourself, and it's also about educating yourself or allowing yourself to be educated if you're not already. That there are those who are trained to treat the symptom. And it's not treating the body, it's treating the symptom. And it's not looking at it from a holistic view, it's trying to eliminate symptoms. And that's what drugs do. And drugs have their place, without a doubt. And they can get you from a place of being really, really, not being able to function in life and kind of get you out of that. But what if you're not on the drug? What happens? You're not functioning, or you're not allowed, your body, you can't see what's going on because it's covering up the symptoms, right? And you have to be able to know your body well enough to be able to, if you're having a symptom, okay, what is it? I'm not sure I'm saying this very well, but coming out of a chronic situation, if you are squashing symptoms and only hiding them, then you don't really know if you're getting better. And I hope that makes sense, and that's kind of the key. I'm working with someone kind of around that same area right now. Is let's do the drugs for a period of time, but let's see what your body's doing. We need to see what your body's doing and how it's reacting and how it's functioning, and what we can do to allow it then to get better. So, in time, the doctors can take her slowly off of the drugs. And
absolutely. We're not bashing drugs here. They saved my life. They absolutely saved my life.
Yeah.
But I needed to add to that a more holistic approach. I needed to add other team members that would look at the other aspects that were more highly trained. The one thing I've learned about the medical professionals is they have specialties. And let's just say, if it's your thumb, and I don't know if there's a specialist for thumbs, but let's say there is. They're just going to look at your thumb. They're not going to look at the rest of your hand. They're not going to look at your foot. And so drugs absolutely saved my life. So I'm not bashing those at all. I'm just saying, as you approach your wellness and as you begin to take steps each day, looking at yourself holistic, looking at the parts that need to be worked, and looking at yourself holistically, and realizing that a lot of times members of your team are very specialized in just one area, and that's why you need a team.
Yes, absolutely. I know that, when I'm a part of a team, I have my specialty, or if somebody needs somebody else that is not my specialty, we refer or we bring on to the team. And that's what should happen for anybody. And that's what, I hope everyone advocates for themselves is, interview your people, interview the people who are on your team. And sometimes it takes a while, like you said. How long ago were you diagnosed?
2014.
Okay, yeah, and so 3 years ago you found your team, and sometimes it takes time, and it's hard. That can be hard. It's a whole other job, right?
And some of the members that are no longer on the team were ideal for the state and situation I was in at that period of time.
Yeah.
But as your health changes, as the wellness emerges, it's good to be able to switch out some team members, or a team member who maybe had been a majority of the time now becomes more of a consultant type of thing. Because the stronger you get, the healthier you get, it's okay to add new team members, or to structure the percentage of time that you're working with specific team members. Yeah. And realize that sometimes people say, oh, that just sounds so wonderful if I could only have a team. Well, oftentimes you may not have a team. They're not like right here in my house, okay?
Right, yeah.
Oftentimes they're in consultative roles or something like that, or reading as much as you can about this different health and well-being things, being able to, sometimes you say, well, I can't afford it, and I understand that. I understand medical conditions really well, how it can be incredibly expensive, but understanding yourself well enough, taking notes about your wellness and your well-being, and being your own best advocate.
Yes.
And so even if you don't have an entire team, you can still create your own internal team to continue your wellness journey.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for that. So I want to make sure that people know, I want to make sure that you've said everything that you want to say, if there's anything that you want to add, but people know, where to find you. I want you to talk more about your podcast, because it's amazing, and it's the #1 podcast on OMTime. Is that right?
The wellness podcast, yes, on OMTimes.
Yeah, it's really great. And so I want you to, so my question, so I know you have your health coaching certification. Do you integrate that so you do your podcast and then you have your other business that you're doing, but you sort of integrate it all together? Is that right?
Well, it's sort of, when you're an entrepreneur and you have a set of skills, it actually runs in 2 separate tracks. There's the work that I do around conflict and conflict resolution and communication, body language, and then there's the wellness work.
Okay.
But as with anyone who knows, this type of thing, so many of the skills overlap. This idea of how we talk about ourselves, whether in the corporate world or in the wellness world, is very similar. So they do overlap. But the show itself is called the Autoimmune Hour. You can find it on all the outlets, as well as OMTimes, but it's on all the outlets, YouTube and iHeart and Spotify, all the outlets. And at first I started doing just medical professionals years ago when we started the show in 2015. And the reason I wanted to start it was I was so frustrated talking to medical professionals. I was like, with all my training, if I'm this frustrated, what's the average person going through? And so we only talk to medical professionals. But I realized that that's not what wellness is. We have to talk about past traumas. We have to talk about food. We have to talk about rest. We have to talk about how do we navigate in the world now. And so what is an invisible illness? A lot of times people call, autoimmune an invisible illness. So the show covers a wide range of things, and it's just all about creating the best you and optimizing yourself every day.
Agreed. And understand, something that you said triggered my thought, where it was understanding that so much of, when we are diagnosed, trying to understand where it came from, because when you said trauma can trigger autoimmune conditions, accidents can trigger autoimmune conditions, stress can trigger autoimmune conditions, as is probably part of your issue. Of course, food can trigger autoimmune conditions. And
even viruses.
Yes, yes. Viruses, mycotoxins,
so many things.
Heavy metals, the glyphosate, Roundup, the pesticides and the herbicides. All of these things can contribute or trigger autoimmune conditions, and knowing that before you have that trigger, I think is important, because we have the ability to mitigate the expression of these conditions. We have the ability to live our life, in very large part by lowering our intake of the pesticides and herbicides, eating good food that we know that is healthy and not contaminated, resting, meditating, praying, sleeping, all of these things. You hear me talk about epigenetics. We might have the potential for autoimmune disease. We might have the potential for cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and you name it. We might have the potential, but knowing our potential is cool too. Look at your history. Okay, here's my potential. I can do all of these things to help inhibit, essentially, the expression of these, they're called SNPs, essentially. And if you have been diagnosed, knowing that you have the ability to reverse it and don't feel stuck in that is very important as well. We have these names that sound really scary, but know that people reverse these names all the time. And I just, you know, my hope is that it's motivating for people to not feel stuck and know that there's more that's out there than, and which is why I do the show too. There's more out there than just conventional medicine, than just nutrition, than just PT and just chiropractors and all that. There's so much out there to help with the mindset and the goals and the mental and the emotional and the dealing with trauma. So much that we can do to move out of these nasty little names that are called diseases.
And not believing, I mean, sometimes not believing that the diagnosis is, sometimes when I first got it, they tell you these terrible, terrifying statistics. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh no. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to be the statistic, okay? Mm-hmm. There are plenty of ways to, if not eradicate, absolutely mitigate a lot of the conditions that are happening to you. And it's not just one thing in the wellness journey.
Right.
It is continuing to layer on new understandings and new ways of being in the world. And one of the simplest ways, and even if you're super busy, I think most people can do it, is just have a walk in nature. Mm-hmm. Go sit under a tree for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Hug that tree for 5 minutes, yes. Whatever it is. And it can be as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. All right, I hate to say it, but we have to be finished.
It's been so much fun seeing you again, Nikki.
So good seeing you. Thank you for joining me. I know that you have other things that you really like to talk about, so I would love to have you on the show again in the next months or whenever you have time, because this is a good topic, and I think it's important for people to hear and to know and to learn from you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nikki.
All right, thank you.
Be sure and listen to Nikki's podcast.
Yeah, I was on your podcast. That was fun.
Yeah, over at understandingautoimmune.com.
Yep. Of course, I'm at tastelifenutrition.com for the website, and then for all of the social media. We're streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, so they have amazing shows on this station, so check them out. Also, starting to push out my new program, Soulful Conception, and this is all about preconception planning, getting ready, getting your body ready so you can create that healthy pregnancy, healthy baby, and a healthy future for many generations to come, because you can impact many generations to come, which is exciting. It's very cool stuff. So I appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Everybody have a good week. Thanks, Sharon.